come across the path of freely speaking Mr. Ahmed Deedat. Mr. Ahmed Deedat is very famous in his own world, and if you don't already know him, I hope he will soon be very famous in yours. He is a Muslim. His title of the lectures that he is going to do, and the, not really debates, but the discussions with people here in Geneva, are Christianity and Islam, Christ in Islam, and the Prophet of Islam and the Bible. Now, we are doing this interview. It is both filmed and it is on audio tape. We are doing this on the 16th of March, 1987, for any information or...
You see, our belief is that the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims, in their origin, these three religions are Semitic religions, and they have a common background in Father Abraham. The Jew respects Father Abraham, the Christian respects him, and the Muslim respects him, and we all claim a common heritage coming from Father Abraham. And I believe that it is the same religion. You see, whether you call it Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, to me these are not three separate religions. It is the same religion on different levels. The titles were given by man with regard to the term Judaism, because I've been asking Jews, Jewish learned men, that this word Judaism, is it to be found in the Torah? They says no. I say, is it in your Talmud? He says no. Is it in your Mishnah? He says no. And so where did you get it? Most of them are puzzled. Where did the word Judaism originate? As is Christianity, is this in the Bible? Any Bible? Does it speak that the religion preached by Jesus Christ was Christianity? No. So where does this term come from? The very first time the word Christian was used, we read in the New Testament, was at Antioch, when the enemies of the followers of Jesus, disparagingly they pointed to them, saying that these are Christians, meaning the worshippers of Christ. But Christ never heard the word Christian, and Christ never heard the word Christianity. And I go beyond and I say, Christ never heard the word Christ in his lifetime.
But didn't he say, I and the Father are one, yes. And therefore doesn't that mean in Judaism, me talking about this, but doesn't that mean that if I and the Father are one, that Spirit is immanent in me, and that therefore he would be the Christ? Or that he would acknowledge himself as being the Christ that was foreseen by the Jews? How am I doing, Mother?
No, Christ, you see the term Christ, it comes from the word Messiah, the Hebrew word Messiah. The Hebrew word Messiah, Arabic, Masih, is the same word, same root form, going back to the word Masaha in Hebrew and Arabic, which means one who is anointed, rubbed over, massaged. Mm-hmm. Priests and kings were anointed in consecration to their offices, mm-hmm. like a coronation ceremony or like a gowning ceremony. So when a person was officially appointed to a certain status, he was the Messiah, the anointed one. Hebrew word Messiah, translated into Greek, Christos, from which they lopped off the os and left you with Christ.
Then what is Christ in Islam?
Yes. In Islam we accept that Jesus was the Christ, meaning he was the one that was promised by God Almighty to come to the Jews and reform the Jews. Now, when he came, he claimed that he was the Messiah, from which we get the word Christ, through the word Christos, and from which again we get the word Christianity. But the word Christ was never heard by Jesus in his lifetime, because this is the Greek word. He said, I am the Messiah. Mm-hmm. He didn't say, I am the Christ in Greek, because he's talking to the Jews, a Jewish prophet coming to Jews, speaking that Jewish language, Hebrew or Aramaic.
He did, Aramaic, I thought.
Aramaic, yes. So while he's speaking, he's saying in his own language is that I am the Messiah, the anointed one, the chosen one. But his people didn't recognize him. They insinuated that he was an impostor, and as such, they had him hanged on the cross. Mm-hmm. The Muslim attitude is that he was the true messenger of God, and he was the Messiah. And more than that, that he was born miraculously, without any male intervention, and that he gave life to the dead by God's permission, and he healed those born blind and the lepers by God's permission. So we are going further than the Jews in the acceptance of Jesus Christ.
Do you have Christ in Islam? You recognize him. The Jews do not. They are still waiting that Messiah. And then where does your prophet, sir, the prophet of Islam and the Bible, come in?
Yes. You see, Muhammad came 600 years after Jesus. Jesus the Christ. 600 years after. God Almighty appointed him. And now there was a dispute going on in his own environment between the Jews and the Christians with regards to the personality of Jesus. What was his stand? What would be the stand of his followers? So he clarifies the position for us with regards to Jesus, that he was one of the mightiest messengers of God. He was the Messiah. He was born miraculously, but he was not God in human form. He is not God incarnate. And he is not the begotten Son of God.
How can you tell that from the Bible?
The Bible also tells us the very same thing. I mean, in my reading of the Christian Bible, nowhere does Jesus ever say at any time, I am God, or worship me. Nowhere. There is not a single Bible among the many versions. There is not a single statement, unequivocal statement, anywhere in any Bible. But on the contrary, like you had mentioned a few minutes back, about I and my Father are one. Now people, when they read that, the Christian now, he is, I say, programmed. We are all programmed. There is no doubt about that. But we must be big enough to say, let's see if you can reprogram me. Now, the Christian has been programmed to think that when he said, I and my Father are one, which meant that he was claiming divinity, that he is God himself. We says, no, he didn't mean in that sense. Those Jews, according to the Christian scriptures, they took exception to that statement of his. But he explains, he said, is it not written in your law, I said ye are gods, that people are even called gods in the scriptures, and you find no fault with that. Why are you taking exception to me when I say I am the Son of God? So in other words, now he was speaking in the sense that God Almighty and him, in purpose they are the same, not in omnipotence, in omniscience, or in any other spiritual matters. He, as he says, my Father is greater than I. So my Father is greater than all. He said, I can of my own self do nothing. God can do everything. He knows everything. He says, of that day, in the last day, no man, no, not the angels, not the Son, but the Father in heaven. No way does he claim equality with God. He's always a subordinate position. But now people, these statements are taken to me out of context, and a religion has been made out of it.
What about Muhammad?
Muhammad is no more than a
Messiah?
messenger. No, he is the messenger of God.
He's a messenger.
Yes. Jesus was also a messenger, but he was somebody that the Jews were waiting for, to liberate them from the Roman bondage, to free them. He had come to do a spiritual job of work. As he told Pilate, Pontius Pilate, he says, my kingdom is not of this world. In other words, mine is a spiritual kingdom. I want to elevate these people spiritually. The people of the time, naturally being under bondage, under Roman rule, they wanted somebody, a physical liberator, making them masters of the world. So the man was not prepared to do that. So the Jews as a people, they had rejected him. But we feel that he was the Messiah that was promised to the Jews.
But if Muslims have Muhammad and the Christians have Jesus, and the Jews don't have anybody yet, is that right?
No, they have Moses and the prophets.
Well, but I mean, they don't have a latter day. Theirs go way, way back.
You see, because we feel that they missed the bus with regards to Jesus. But Jesus was the Messiah. But now the Jews have given up all hope of the Messiah. They don't talk about the Messiah anymore.
I bet they don't in their hearts. I bet they don't.
Yes, because they said, now look, we now need, they will take matters into our own hands. They wanted the Messiah to come and do a job for them. And the practical philosophy they applied, Theodore Hertz, they said, now we will get what the Messiah is supposed to do. And they did it. 1948, they established the state of Israel. They took the hands out of the Messiah's hand and they established the state of Israel.
Now, Mr. Deedat, how can you explain, sir, with your deep knowledge of of all of the religious literature, how can you explain that people from your religion, people from Christianity, people from Israel, people from every other religion, and especially those with no religion at all who deny God, that we're all out there cheerfully slaughtering each other every single day from morning until night, and sometimes they stay up all night to get the job done?
True, ma'am.
Where is God and Mohammed and everybody
It is programming. And you see, we all can get programmed into any types of attitudes. I mean, we take Germany, Hitler at Germany. Is Germany one of the most cultured nations in Europe? Is it possible that they could have incinerated 6 million Jews under Hitler? Obvious answer is no. How can a nation so cultured do a thing like that? But programming, we all can get brainwashed. And I say, whether Muslim, Hindu, or whatever, titles you give to yourself, we all can be programmed into right and wrong. But to look at the problem objectively is very difficult. To get rid of our prejudice, as Roger Bacon, he said, it is easier for a man to burn down his own house than to get rid of his prejudices. It's very true. Whether Muslim, Christian, Jew, it applies to all. But now if we can become big enough to say, now let us see what have you got. What is truth and where is truth? Let us have some objective standards of judging truth. Not what I want to believe or what you want to believe. Let us see. And if there is a document, and we believe that there is a document, which we say the Holy Quran, when you open this book, and if you didn't know that you were reading the Quran, if you came across pieces of these writings, say in English, like the birth of Jesus, for example, from the Quran, and I have shown this to Christians, Orthodox Christians, born-again Christians, I say, just have a look at this, the birth of Jesus, in the Quran. It says, وَإِذْ قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ يَا مَرْيَمُ. It says, behold, the angel said, O Mary, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اسْتَفَاكِ وَطَهَّرَكِ وَاسْتَفَاكِ عَلَى نِسَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ, that God Almighty has chosen thee and purified thee, chosen thee above the women of all nations. Now, so when you read words like this in English without seeing the Arabic text, in that portion, I said, if I read further to you, and if I read it all to you, if you read this on a piece of paper lying around, in 100 years, in 1,000 years, you'll never guess you're reading the Quran.
No, I wouldn't.
The Christian. I said, you would think that maybe this is the Roman Catholic version of the Bible, if you haven't seen one. Maybe this is the Greek Orthodox version of the Bible, which you might not have seen one. Maybe this is the New World Translation of the Bible by the Jehovah's Witnesses, if you haven't seen one, and on and on. But you'll never guess you're reading the Quran. Why? Because it's so close to your heart. See, what is being said is so close, that Jesus is the Messiah. He was born miraculously. He gave life to the dead by God's permission. He healed those born blind and the lepers by God's permission. Now, it's so close to your heart that it is like your own book. And that is with regards to any message. Any way you read, it's as if there is somebody talking to you. I said, that somebody is God. Objectively, you can read, and as if this message is being spoken to your heart direct. See? But now, what happens before you touch the book? A prejudice has already been created in your heart and mind. This is something that might burn your spirit or destroy you.
No, I think the Western mind says that's Khomeini, and that's
unpleasant
too.
That is today. But even before Khomeini, you see, I have sometimes Orthodox Christians coming along. There was one young man who was a Roman Catholic. He came for some other purposes. Then chatting, I took a liking to the man. I said, look, I'd like to present you with this Quran. And as if I was offering him some fire, to hold on to fire. I said, no, he can't have that. I said, look, read it, man, and see. And it took me a long time to persuade him to take the book. I said, read it, see what it has to say. And after reading it, he was a changed man. He said he didn't expect, what he's seeing it in here. Another elderly gentleman, we presented him with the Quran, this holy book. And after some time I phoned him up, I said, now, how's your progress? He said, no, I haven't read it yet. Again, another time, I said, I haven't had time to go to it yet. 3 or 4 times I phoned the man. Then he says, look, man, I have been reading it all along. But, I can't help agreeing with the book. And I'm too old to change now. So therefore, this is the problem. I'm too old to change. But he's reading it all along and he can't help agreeing with every principle that is enunciated. It is coming from the source of all truth. We say from God. And if you, without prejudiced minds, if you open the book, you see what it does to you. It must change, create a change.